The ladder of prayer. Prayer has no beginning and no end. It is a part of life, but it does not change in form and grow with learning until it reaches its formless state and fuses in total communication with God. In its asking form, it need not, and often does not, make appeal to God or even involve belief in Him. At these levels, prayer is merely wanting, out of sense of scarcity and lack. These forms of prayer, or asking out of need, always involve feelings of weakness and inadequacy, and could never be made by a son of God who knows who he is. No one then who is sure of his identity could pray in these forms. Yet it is also true that no one who is uncertain of his identity can avoid praying in this way, and prayer is as continual as life. Everyone prays without ceasing. Ask and you have received, for you have established what it is you want. It is also possible to reach a higher form of asking out of need, for in this world prayer is reparative, and so it must entail levels of learning. Here the asking may be addressed to God in honest belief, though not yet with understanding. A vague and usually unstable sense of identification has generally been reached, but tends to be blurred by a deep-rooted sense of sin. It is possible at this level to continue to ask for things of this world in various forms, and it is also possible to ask for gifts such as honesty or goodness, and particularly for forgiveness, for the many sources of guilt that inevitably will underlie any prayer of need. Without guilt there's no scarcity. The sinless have no needs. At this level also comes that curious contradiction in terms known as praying for one's enemies. The contradiction lies not in the actual words, but rather in the way in which they are usually interpreted. While you believe you have enemies, you have limited prayer to the laws of this world, and have also limited your ability to receive and to accept the same narrow margins. And yet, if you have enemies, you have need of prayer, and a great need too. What does the phrase really mean? Pray for yourself, that you may not seek to imprison Christ and thereby lose the recognition of your own identity. Be traitor to no one, or you will be treacherous to yourself. An enemy is the symbol of an imprisoned Christ, and who could he be except yourself? The prayer for enemies thus becomes a prayer for your own freedom. Now it is no longer a contradiction in terms. It has become a statement of the unity of Christ and a recognition of his sinlessness. And now it has become holy, for it acknowledges the Son of God as he was created. Let it never be forgotten that prayer at any level is always for yourself. If you unite with anyone in prayer, you make him part of you. The enemy is you, as is the Christ. Before it can become holy, then, prayer becomes a choice. You do not choose for another, but you can but choose for yourself. Pray truly for your enemies, for herein lies your own salvation. Forgive them for your sins, for you will be forgiven indeed. Prayer is a ladder reaching up to heaven. At the top, there is a transformation, much like your own, for prayer is part of you. The things of earth are left behind, all unremembered. There is no asking, for there is no lack. Identity in Christ is fully recognized as set forever, beyond all change and incorruptible. The light no longer flickers and will never go out. Now, without needs of any kind, and clad forever in the pure sinlessness that is the gift of God to you, his Son, prayer can again become what it was meant to be. For now it rises as a song of thanks to your Creator, sung without words or thoughts or vain desires, unneedful now of anything at all. So it extends, as it was meant to do. For this giving, God himself gives thanks. God is the goal of every prayer, giving it timelessness instead of end. Nor has it a beginning, because the goal has never changed. Prayer in its earlier forms is an illusion, because there's no need for a ladder to reach what one has never left. Yet prayer is part of forgiveness as long as forgiveness, itself an illusion, remains unattained. Prayer is tied up with learning, till the goal of learning has been reached, and then all things will be transformed together and returned unblemished into the mind of God. Being beyond learning, this state cannot be described. The stages necessary to its attainment, however, need to be understood if peace is to be restored to God's Son, who lives now with the illusion of death and the fear of God. Praying for others. We said that prayer is always for yourself, and this is so. Why then should you pray for others at all? And if you should, how should you do it? Praying for others, if rightly understood, becomes a means for lifting your projections of guilt from your brother and enabling you to recognize it is not he who is hurting you. The poisonous thought that he is your enemy, your evil counterpart, your nemesis, must be relinquished before you can be saved from guilt. For this the means is prayer of rising power and with ascending goals until it reaches even up to God. The earlier forms of prayer, at the bottom of the ladder, will not be free from envy and malice. They call for vengeance, not for love, and nor do they come from one who understands that there are calls for death made out of fear by those who cherish guilt. They call upon a vengeful God, and it is he who seems to answer them. Hell cannot be asked for another and then escaped by him who asks for it. Only those who are in hell can ask for hell. Those who have been forgiven and who accepted their forgiveness could never make a prayer like that. At these levels, then, the learning goal must be to recognize that prayer will bring an answer only in the form in which the prayer was made. This is enough. From here, it will be an easy step to the next levels. The next ascent begins with this. What I have asked for my brother is not what I would have. Thus have I made him my enemy. It is apparent that this step cannot be reached by anyone who sees no value or advantage to himself in setting others free. This may be long delayed, because it may seem to be dangerous instead of merciful. To the guilty, there seems indeed to be a real advantage of having enemies, and this imagined gain must go if enemies are to be set free. Guilt must be given up and not concealed. Nor can this be done without some pain, and a glimpse of the merciful nature of this step may, for some time, be followed by a deep retreat into fear. For fear's defenses are fearful in themselves, and when they are recognized, they bring their fear with them. Yet what advantage has an illusion of escape ever brought a prisoner? His real escape from guilt can lie only in the recognition that the guilt is gone. And how can this be recognized as long as he hides it in another and does not see it as his own? Fear of escape makes it difficult to welcome freedom, and to make a jailer of an enemy seems to be safety. How then can he be released without an insane fear for yourself? You have made of him your salvation and your escape from guilt. Your investment in this escape is heavy, and your fear of letting go is so strong. Stand still an instant now and think what you have done. Do not forget that it is you who did it, and who can therefore let it go. Hold out your hand. This enemy has come to bless you. Take his blessing. Feel how your heart is lifted, and your fear is released. Do not hold on to it, nor onto him. He is a son of God along with you. He is no jailer, but a messenger of Christ. Be this to him, that you may see him thus. It is not easy to realize that prayers for things, for status, for human love, for external gifts of any kind, are always made to set up jailers and to hide from guilt. These things are used for goals that substitute for God, and therefore distort the purpose of prayer. The desire for them is the prayer. One need not ask explicitly. The goal of God is lost in the quest for lesser goals of any kind, and prayer becomes request for enemies. The power of prayer can be quite clearly recognized even in this. No one who wants an enemy will fail to find one, but just as surely will he lose the only true goal that is given him. Think of the cost and understand it well. All other goals are at the cost of God. Praying with others. Until the second level at least begins, one cannot share in prayer. for until that point, each one must ask for different things. But once the need to hold the other as an enemy has been questioned, and the reason for doing so has been recognized, if only for an instant, it becomes possible to join in prayer. Enemies do not share a goal. It is in this their enemy is kept. Their separate wishes are their arsenals, their fortresses in hate. The key to rising further still in prayer lies in this simple thought, this change of mind. We go together, you and I. Now it is possible to help in prayer, and so reach up yourself. This step begins the quicker ascent, but there are still many lessons to learn. The way is open, and hope is justified. Yet it is likely at first that what is asked for, even by those who join in prayer, is not the goal that prayer should truly seek. Even together you may ask for things, and thus set up but an illusion of a goal you share. You may ask together for specifics and not realize that you are asking for effects without the cause. And this you cannot have, for no one can receive effects alone, asking a cause from which they do not come to offer them to him. Even in the joining, then, it's not enough. If those who pray together do not ask before all else, what is the will of God? From this cause only can the answer come, in which are all specifics satisfied, all separate wishes unified in one. Prayer for specifics always asks to have the past repeated in some way, what was enjoyed before, or seemed to be, what was another's, and he seemed to love. All these are but illusions from the past. The aim of prayer is to release the present from its chains of past illusions, to let it be a freely chosen remedy from every choice that stood for a mistake. What prayer can offer now so far exceeds all that you've asked for before that it is pitiful to be content with less. You have chosen a newborn chance each time you pray. And would you stifle and imprison it in ancient prisons when the chance has come to free yourself from all of them at once? Do not restrict your asking. Prayer can bring the peace of God. What time-bound thing can give you more than this? And in just the little space that lasts until it crumbles into dust. The latter ends. Prayer is a way to true humility, and here again it rises slowly up and grows in strength and love and holiness. Let it but leave the ground where it begins to rise to God, and true humility will come at last to grace the mind that thought it was alone and stood against the world. Humility brings peace because it does not claim that you must rule the universe, nor judge all things as you would have them be. All little gods it gladly lays aside, not in resentment, but in honesty and recognition that they do not serve. Illusions and humility have goals so far apart they cannot coexist nor share a dwelling place where they can meet. Where one has come, the other disappears. The truly humble have no goal but God, because they need no idols, and defense no longer serves a purpose. Enemies are useless now, because humility does not oppose. It does not hide in shame, because it is content with what it is, knowing creation is the will of God. Its selflessness is self, and this it sees in every meeting, where it gladly joins with every Son of God, whose purity it recognizes that it shares with him. Now prayer is lifted from the world of things, of bodies, and of gods of every kind, and you can rest in holiness at last. Humility has come to teach you how to understand your glory as God's Son, and recognize the arrogance of sin. A dream has veiled the face of Christ from you, and now you can look upon his sinlessness. High has the ladder risen. You have come almost to heaven. There is little more to learn before the journey is complete. Now you can say to everyone who comes to join in prayer with you, I cannot go without you, for you are part of me. And so he is in truth. Now can you pray only for what you truly share with him, for you have understood he never left, and you, who seemed alone, are one with him. The latter ends with this, for learning is no longer needed. Now you stand before the gate of heaven, and your brother stands beside you there. The lawns are deep and still, For here the place appointed for the time when you should come has waited long for you. Here will time end forever. At this gate, eternity itself will join with you. Prayer has become what it was meant to be, for you have recognized the Christ in you.